Hello, welcome to Living Arts. I'm your host, Jackie Suarez. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight we're going to be speaking to esteemed artist Lawrence Flood. He's going to be here with us. Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here.
I've been looking forward to talking to you.
Me too. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
We both live in the same town, but ironically, we've never bumped into each other and we've never met before. So we've got a chance to catch up and do some talking now.
Terrific.
So, like I always like to do with all of my guests, I like to do a little background and just give our audience a taste of what their lives were like before they became artists and do a little background on them. So why don't you tell me about yourself? Tell us a little about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Lawrence Flood. I live in Cortland Manor. I have a wife and 2 daughters, and they're really the main focus of my life. I'm a very committed family man. I love my wife and children, and a lot of the art I do is to kind of entertain them, and I always run it by them to see if they approve and if they like it. So as far as starting as an artist, I, as a small child, used to draw all the time with crayons. I would go through coloring books like there was no tomorrow. At school, my mother would have my school books would be covered with paper from a shopping sack, and I would draw on it all the time at school. Every couple of weeks, she'd have to swap it out. My father was constantly painting areas of the house that I would draw on with my crayons, but he encouraged me. Later on in life, when I got to high school, I went to Walter Panis High School. I took art classes with Mrs. Petrusich and Mrs. Sadao. And I really got into art there. I learned how to draw, I learned how to watercolor, did a little bit of painting. And from there, when it came time to go on to college, I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I went to the SUNY Brockport for a year, and I was taking just a kind of a general education class, and I just felt out of place. And a friend of mine from high school was going to the School of Visual Arts. And he said, "You really should come down and look at this place and maybe consider going there." And I followed his advice. I checked it out. I worked feverishly to put a portfolio together, submitted it. And to my surprise, well, actually not to my surprise, but I was very delighted that they accepted me. And I went to art school in New York City. I started in 1977. I graduated in 1980 with a degree of Bachelor of Fine Arts, and while I was there, I studied with a lot of really good painters.
Now, is that strictly just an art school, or is that more of like a liberal arts college?
When I was there, it was an art school. You could major in fine arts, illustration, comic art, and advertising. And I think they had a photography group, and they were just starting some film school. Now it's a very big place. It's got all kinds of things going on now. It's grown tremendously.
It's the school that's on, I want to say that it's on the Upper West Side?
No, it's on, the main building is on 23rd Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue.
Okay.
But they have annexes throughout the city.
Okay.
And when I went there, they didn't even have dorms. Now they have dorms. And there was one student in my class who was from Japan. I would say now probably 20% of the students are from other countries. Maybe
Really?
even more, yeah.
So that's incredible.
Yeah, it was a great experience going to art school. I call it, my friends and I called it kindergarten for adults, because we just had a great time.
So you were able to take just your love of painting that you had and actually get a degree in art.
Yeah, and my parents supported me, and we didn't have any artists in the family. They didn't, what was this going to lead to? And when I got out of school, it didn't really lead to much of anything. I got a job in commercial art, but it didn't pay very well. There really wasn't much room to grow in the field, or the field I was in, and I just wasn't really enjoying it, because I ended up majoring in fine art. And in fine art, we had our own little studio, and you were free to do whatever you wanted to do, to explore the different mediums, to just explore where you wanted to go with your art, what you wanted to do, and how you wanted to express it. And in commercial art, it was like you worked on a specific project for a client, and it was very limited into how much creativity you could have. And I just was very uncomfortable, and I didn't like it.
It was too structured for you.
Yes. Which is kind of ironic, because the next phase of my life was very structured. I was going nowhere art-wise, and my father goes, "Well, they're giving a test for police officers down in New York City." And I said, "I always wanted to be a cop. Just to go back a little bit, our neighbor in the Bronx was a police officer, and I always liked him when I used to see him in his uniform, and he made a big impression. I used to watch Adam 12, so I liked police work. But when it came time to go to college, and I thought I'd go for criminal justice, my mother said, absolutely not. I don't want you being a police officer. So now we go years later, living in their basement, not making much money, not being very happy. And my dad said, here's this opportunity. They're hiring a lot of police officers. I took the test, and I ended up having a really fabulous career. It changed my life. I went off in a totally different direction. Didn't do very much art for almost 26, 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and but just had this career that I really liked, really enjoyed, and I found very rewarding.
So what did you do with your, once you got on the force, or you were saying that you were a captain?
At the end of my career, I was there for 26 years. I started off as a patrol officer. Mm-hmm. And over the course of 26 years, I had many different assignments in many different places throughout the city. Police work took me to places I never would have imagined going to. I was on the field when the Mets won their National League championship one year. I was at Yankee Stadium.
I remember that. 1986, right?
I think it was. I don't recall. In not in 1986. No, it was later on. They didn't win the World Series that year, but they did win.
I thought they won the World Series. That was the
in '86 they won the World Series.
We're all hanging on to.
Yeah. Then in '86 they beat the Red Sox, but I was on the field for that. But I was in a lot of different places. 1996 I was at Yankee Stadium when the Yankees clinched the World Series. I've met presidents. I shook President Obama's hand and Senator McCain's hand on the same night at Columbia University. It just took me a lot of different places. It was like having a box seat for this biggest show in the world and in the biggest city of the world. And I rose through the ranks. I was a sergeant in the Bronx. I was a lieutenant in Manhattan South. And then I was a captain, and as a captain, I worked in Manhattan North for most of my career on patrol. I did spend some time in internal affairs, but later on I went back to patrol, and I was in charge of a unit that went from 59th Street all the way up to the tip of Manhattan, and we just went everywhere we were supposed to go, whatever we were assigned to do, but it just took us in so many different places. And tragically, I was involved in 9/11. And I spent a lot of time down at Ground Zero. I was there for a couple of months in charge of a little section, but as time went by, I became responsible for even a bigger and bigger portion of the rescue and recovery operation, although at that time it was just recovery. So, no, it was just a great career. But like so many things in life, it came to a point where it was time to move on. While I was in the police department, I would do art. I have one project. I do a family Christmas card, and I do that every year. And I have done it for probably close to 40 years now. So that was the one big project I would do every year.
I was going to ask you that, how you kept your art alive, or were there any projects you did along the way? Because you're saying 26 years is a long time to suspend your painting.
I would always have something. I would always be doing a little something somewhere. I love to draw, so I would be constantly drawing. I would be in meetings, and I'd be drawing and
doodling.
Yeah, doodling. I'd come back from CompStat meetings, which are like big executive meetings, and they go on for hours on end. And I would have someone who would prepare my notebook for the CompStat meeting. It would be a big, thick binder, about 12 inches high, and he would take it after I was done with it, and he'd re-up it the next, like a month later when we had to go back. And he was always amused by the things that were inside my book. He goes, these are great. He goes, they're so creative. I was like, I'm just keeping myself busy.
So did you find, I guess, at the point that you retired was when you could start to kind of revitalize your career?
When I retired, I started doing more art, but not very seriously. And then about 3 years ago, my daughters and my wife said, you really should do this. It's either now or never. If you want to be an artist, then be an artist. Devote yourself to it, get a studio back up and running, and see where it takes you. So that's what I did. So I set up a studio in my father's house, and I started working every day to draw or paint or to do something. I got involved in the local art scene, the Peekskill Arts Alliance, which really kind of pushed me a long ways into getting back into it, because there was a lot of, you had that professional community of artists, people who really dig art and want to talk about art, and you play off of each other and then you inspire each other.
Right, exactly. The kind of work you're doing or what they're doing, kind of you feed off of each other.
Yep. And I've made some really nice friends in the Peekskill Arts Alliance, and it's really helped me to really grow as an artist. So.
Well, you're also on the board.
Yes.
We should let our audience know that as well.
Oh yeah, I'm a board member of the Peekskill Arts Alliance. I figured if I'm going to join, jump right in and get involved wholeheartedly.
So how long have you been on a member of the board?
Just over 2 years.
Terrific. That's
Yeah.
terrific. We'll just quickly add, that you've got a project coming up with them for the holidays.
Yes, we have a holiday craft boutique, which is going to take place the same weekend that the Peekskill tree lighting ceremony takes place. We've done this for 2 years now, and it's inside of the Chamber of Commerce building. So you kind of come off the streets and come into the little room in the back. But there's some really great art and some really nice craft work that is there. And we tried to get the people who are submitting work to price it for less than $100 so that it's affordable. And
Right.
the last couple of years we've had a lot of success.
That's a great show, and it's in a great space. So definitely, the audience should take a look at that.
I hope they do, because it's local artists. You're supporting a local artist. These are people who
Some
live
of your
in your
work will be
community.
there as well.
I don't know. I
No, not this year?
haven't committed to being there yet.
No.
No, but it's not a bad idea, and I probably should do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you should. You should. So now you're saying that you're working out of your father's basement?
No, recently he sold his house and he moved to
Okay.
Florida.
Okay.
So I set up a little studio in my own house,
Okay.
and it's not the same. He had a very big house, and it just was my space down in the basement, and I could do whatever I wanted down there. My house is, I'm sharing it mostly with my wife, who has her stuff and my stuff, so I have a lot less space to work with. But it's not a big problem, because recently what I've been doing is working on my computer, on my laptop, creating digital art. It's different than painting, and it takes up almost no space at all, because it's all stored inside the computer. The only time it takes up space is if I'm having a show. I print out some images. I go to a professional printer, have images printed, and then have them framed. And if they don't sell, then I come back home and I have all these frames laying around the house. So it takes up a little bit of space.
So I was actually going to ask you about that. What does it take to go ahead and do something like that? What's the process behind the digital aspect of it? Doing digital prints.
I started a while ago. I had, I noticed on my laptop there was a program called Microsoft Paint. So I started playing around with it just to explore it and see what it was all about. When I first started, I was working on a conventional laptop. I had a little mouse to run it around, so the drawings were kind of stiff and never not that good. I transitioned into a touchscreen laptop, and then everything just sort of like, it just came alive. It was so easy to make art on it. It's primitive and kind of modern at the same time. You open up the computer, you bring it up on the screen, and you can literally paint with your finger on the touchscreen laptop. You can take your finger and draw lines, you can draw shapes.
So it's like your paintbrush.
Yeah, your finger's your paintbrush. And to color in fields, you just hit this little paint can icon, and you can touch an area, and it just drops in a whole bunch of color. So it doesn't take a lot of time. You can be as detailed as, there are limitations in detail, but you can be somewhat detailed in it. You can be abstract. It's just I found it to be a very interesting way to make art.
Medium, yeah.
Yeah,
So how long have you been doing that?
probably about 2.5 years, but it really took off just a little over a year ago when I got the touchscreen laptop.
Okay, so is that kind of taking over for you as more so than the acrylic on canvas?
Before that, acrylic on canvas is something that I don't do as often as I should, because it involves a lot of space, and I enjoy painting on canvas. There's two here.
These are lovely.
Oh, thank you. And there's something special about painting on a canvas. It's more traditional. But prior to that, I was doing mostly pen and ink drawings. That's my thing. I like to draw. I go through the day just drawing. If I go to church with my wife, I sit in church and I draw. If I go to a concert, I'll draw what's around me. If I go to a sporting event, I'll draw some of what's in front of me. I just like to draw. It's just something that just makes me happy.
Right, very in the moment.
Yeah.
Very in the moment. And you'd mentioned before when we were talking that you like to upload or to post something on Facebook every day of something that's happened in your day, and you do have a brand new drawing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
The digital art and Facebook have been a happy combination for me, and they work very well. Facebook has actually worked very well for me. It gives you a platform to reach out to the world, to get your art out there. And what I do is I have my own personal page. I don't have a separate art page. I started creating one, but I just kind of never launched it. And on my own personal page, I just put a drawing out there. Sometimes while I'm eating breakfast, I'll create something, or sometime late at night while watching TV, I'll create an image, and I want to share it with the world, or not the entire world, I guess my friends, but I don't have my page closed,
Well,
so it is out there.
They can
for the world.
repost it, so we really can share it with the world.
And people do share some of the images. Some of the images are personal, some of the images are humorous, and some of the images are topical, related to events that are going on in the world. So it gives me a big spectrum of topics to cover, and I don't like to post too many things. I try to limit myself to one post a day. So I try to make it the one thing that I really want to have out there. Sometimes I'll do two. Sometimes if I have a couple images that all tie in together, I'll create a little album and put them all out together as one thing.
Are you being that prolific?
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's
that you're putting out that much work per day.
Oh, I probably I can draw anywhere from up to a dozen pieces a day if I just am inspired and just in a good place.
So how did you develop your artistic style?
It started as a small child drawing with crayons and just drawing and drawing and drawing. It kind of developed throughout my entire life, just drawing all the time. School of Visual Arts had a big impact on me. The teachers I had there would help you and fine-tune you and say, this is working for you, that's not working for you, go try this. And I had one particular teacher, Juan Gonzalez, and he would draw this most incredible detailed drawings. It looked like an angel would draw this thing, and it's just I tried to draw as much as I could to try and be as good a draftsman as he is, or was. He passed. And I really developed almost a trompe-l'oeil style, where you kind of fool the eye. You try and draw a stamp or a match that it looks so real that someone would want to pick it up. As I aged, though, I found that I didn't need to be quite as realistic. I get more expressive. And as you go through life, or I did anyway, I look at a lot of art books, and people that I didn't appreciate when I was younger, all of a sudden it's like, wow, Matisse was really great. Picasso was great. Look at what they're doing. Look at how their graphic styles. Look at how they're bringing colors into things. Look at how they're painting and doing different textures and just being very creative. At one point in my life, everything was about photorealism. I just photorealism is everything. And as I became more experienced and more aware of the world, I realized that there's much more stuff you can do than that. You can be very expressive. You can be creative. Let yourself go. And that's pretty much as I'm going along. I don't work in any one particular style. I go back and forth. I have things that are very cartoony. I have things that are very detailed. It's whatever kind of mood I'm in and how I want to express what it is that I'm thinking and feeling.
Right, is how you're going to express yourself.
Yeah.
Right, because I noticed that on your website. You have the drawings or the sketches, then you have the digital prints, and then you have the acrylic on canvas.
Yeah.
So now let's talk a little bit about some of the shows that you've been in. You've been out there quite a bit. You've had your work displayed in a couple of places. We have the Hendrick Hudson Library.
Yeah.
And we have also the Flats. So why don't we start with Hendrick Hudson?
Okay. I've been very fortunate this year to have opportunities to show my work in several different locations at several different times. Hendrick Hudson Library is the most current one, and also the Flats too. I have two shows going on through the month of October. The Hendrick Hudson Library is it's paintings and digital art and drawings. It's a solo show. It's going to be up until October 30th. The hours are the normal library hours. And I had a show there in September, which was pretty much the same thing. It was based on La Luna, the moon, where all the art had some kind of tie-in to the moon, because I love drawing night scenes. This current show, an artist dropped out, and Connie Dykeman said, I need somebody. Can you put together a show? And I said, no problem.
Right, with the kind of work you put out or the amount of work you're putting out.
Yeah, I have it all laying around. All I had to do is just grab some stuff and bring it down
Get
there.
kind of a common theme.
Yeah.
So what's the theme of this
This
show?
one is autumn and Halloween. So there's a lot of things that are fall foliage scenes, because I love the work of the Hudson River School. And the area we live, the fall is just a beautiful season. Autumn, everything comes alive. So there's some landscapes, there's some drawings of my backyard, or trees or leaves or things that you would see in nature. And then there's a whole bunch of things that are tied into Halloween. And they're not grotesque, scary Halloween-y, because some people like that and some people do
More
that.
like kiddish, fun Halloween.
Yes, that's it's almost a little humor, a little nostalgic. Some of the images just kind of draw back to old TV shows or horror movies that weren't all that scary or gruesome.
Right.
There's some images that you look at and you go, oh, I think I kind of know where that's coming from. And I experimented. There's some paintings in there that they're probably 30 years old, and I just like this is perfect for a Halloween show. And I have this one painting of a skull and crossbones, and somewhere along the line, my daughters talked me into attaching a little spider that they made with kind of a little spongy ball and some pipe cleaners, and it just looks great on the piece. So that's sitting down there. And that's a lot of artists doing that, attaching objects to paintings. So it works.
Absolutely, and it's great you had that opportunity to be shown in the library twice like that.
It was just worked out that way. It's great. Connie did solid by me. And I'm also in a group show at the Flats. There's a show called The Ashes.
Up from the Ashes?
Up from the Ashes, yes.
Right.
And it's about opiate addiction, and a lot of artists have been personally affected by the painkillers, heroin epidemic here in the United States. So I was asked to be in the show, and I drew an image about, I have a nephew who's a heroin addict, and it's very tragic to see how this young man's life has turned out.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So am I. And he's a great kid, but he just had a lot of issues and ended up being addicted to drugs. He now lives out on the streets. His parents have done everything to try and get him to be sober, and it's just an ongoing struggle. It's really taking its toll on them emotionally and financially. And I wanted to express how this could happen to anybody. And from my experience being a police officer in New York City, especially back when I first started, there used to be a lot of heroin and drug addicts out on the street. And you would see them standing on a corner after they had shut up, and they would just kind of like be very flexible, and they'd be in their own little world, and they would kind of just moving around and bending and ways that people don't normally bend but not losing their balance. So I drew a picture of my nephew doing this, but holding an American flag in his hand. And I called it American Junkie because this is one of our kids. This is
Right,
our community.
He's symbolizing so many others that
Yes.
are going through the same struggle.
Yes, and it's it's something that has an impact on everybody here in our community.
It's real. It's very real.
Yeah, it's terrible. It really is. I don't know what the answers are. I don't know what we can do to help my nephew. I just hope and pray that
Yes,
there are
exactly.
positive outcomes in the long run.
So that's an important show. I hope people go to see it and, will come and check it out.
Yeah.
You're a part of the show as well as some of the other members of the PAA, which that's the Peekskill Arts Alliance.
There's many local artists in the show, but there's also artists from Brooklyn and New York City. Inez, who put the show together, really reached out to the artistic community. And there's some very powerful pieces in the show. There are also little statements next to, next to each of the art. And it gives you an explanation of what the artist was thinking and why he or she created this particular piece. And as you go through the show, like people that I know, I didn't know that they had this connection with this drug epidemic, but they do.
Everybody's lives have been touched in one way or another. So this is going to be at the Flats, which is in Peekskill, downtown Peekskill.
Yep.
All the information you can find online.
Yeah, at the Flats.
And it's you wouldn't happen to have the address on. Let me see if I wrote
Yes,
it down.
I do. It's 1008 Main Street.
1008 Main Street. Thanks,
Right.
Lawrence.
Not a problem.
So, the show's winding down now. I'd like you to go ahead and give our audience a way for them to contact you and to see your work
Oh,
and to just get more information about you.
great. Well, thank you. Probably the easiest.
This camera's over here.
Okay. The easiest way, if you're interested, is to go to my website, which is www.lawrenceflood.com. And it's LAWRENCEFLOOD. I've also found that if you just type in Lawrence Flood and the word art, that the website generally pops up. I also have a Facebook page, which is open to the public. You can just put my name in Facebook, and hopefully it'll take you to my page, and you can look at the art and see what you like. The Peekskill Arts Alliance has a website, and our members, all the artists have their own page. And I would recommend that you go to the Peekskill Arts Alliance, just Google that. It'll take you to the page for our group's website, and go to the artist link, and you'll see lists for a lot of different artists. Not all the artists have pages, but it would open up the door to seeing the work of a whole bunch of local artists. And if you look at them, you might find someone that you really like and want to get to know their art a whole lot better.
Well, that's terrific. You just told me something that I guess I kind of knew, but it slipped my mind. Just going onto the PAA website and being able to see all the different artists. So you just reminded me of something.
Oh, good.
So you just taught me something, Lawrence.
Well, thank you.
So thanks. I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. It was great to hear about your life and get to know you a little bit better. I'm really jazzed about your work, and I'm looking forward to seeing it at the Flats and getting over to the Hendrick Hudson Library as well.
Well, thank you.
So thank you. Don't be a stranger, and definitely come back to us.
Great. Thank you, Jackie.
All right, terrific. To the Living Arts audience, I want to thank you for tuning in. It's been great spending this time with you. I hope you enjoy getting to know Lawrence a little bit better. As always, we'll be back with some more great interviews. You can always catch previous interviews on YouTube and get some current information on our Facebook page. And we'll be back soon. Peace.